Dr. mchangizi here with your Science Moment. Today I'm going to talk about being symptomatic and the perception of symptomatic folks. One thing we talked about in sort of cyber medicine and maybe moment number 53 was how when you're doing a cyber meeting, and especially cyber medicine, you have lost much of your ability to diagnose somebody in person. You're missing the ability to see the symptoms and signs on them. And in cyber meetings generally, we're losing our ability to see the emotional expressions, and much of that comes, a lot of that comes through the color modulations on the face, which is something you can see in person with our particular kind of color vision. It's a discovery of mine from 2006 that our eyes are actually optimized to see these color states of the oxygenation modulations under the skin. But through a cyber meeting on your phone or on a computer, those signals are lost and you don't see those any longer. Now, when you're trying to see symptoms, it's not just the case that when you have symptoms, that these are automatic side effects of the virus just creating symptoms. A lot of what you see on another person is sometimes purposeful in the sense that they've evolved signals where we're actually trying to signal others that we're potentially sick. You may have noticed that sometimes your spouse might say to you, "Hey, honey, you look sick," and you didn't even notice. You thought maybe I had a faint tickle of a sore throat, say, but I didn't really notice that I was sick. And then your wife might say, "Look, something's wrong with you. You don't look right." And then you go, "I guess I'm not really feeling that well, maybe." Sometimes it's the others around you that can identify signs of you being sick. And you're not the first person to know. Others are the first person to know. So, I have a spider hanging by my phone here. So, that's an unappreciated importance of being in a social group, that we've actually evolved to potentially be able to identify early signs of sickness in those around us. That we're able to see the minute changes in the oxygenation in the skin and the hemoglobin concentration in the skin, as well as, let's say, droopy eyes and a lot of other kinds of subtle changes that happen when you're sick. You can see those things. So what you want, if there's a pandemic, and what you want is to have these great devices, which are in some sense symptom recognition devices, all around you. And the greatest symptom recognition devices are in the eyes and the ears and the touch of all of the people around you. But instead, when you lock people down and they're no longer around other people, well, at first glance you say, well, they're not spreading it, but you're also no longer having all of these eyes identifying those who have symptoms. If you're locked down at home and your doctor's seeing you only via cyber meeting, then they're not able to see any of the signs of you being sick. If you have a mask on, then you're covering over much of your symptoms and the signs of you being sick. And if these vaccines are indeed, as they say, lowering the symptoms, but you're still infected and you're still infectious and you may be indeed protected, but you still have lowered symptoms, then the ability for humans to recognize these symptoms early is again being handicapped. Many of these interventions are potentially counterproductive, maybe because it's actually hurting the social group's ability to recognize those who are in fact symptomatic and sick, and then they can they can contain themselves and put themselves in self-quarantine on the basis of that. All of our interventions are potentially undermining natural organic responses that would in fact work better. And that was your Science Moment.